RMJ Movie Reviews back again with another happy holidays movie review for the month of October. I mean, the leaves is changing outside. It's getting cold out here. I told y'all that I was gonna try to aim towards more obscure kind of horror films this month. Of course, I said I'm gonna, like I said before, I'm gonna throw in the traditional ones. I'm gonna throw in the Fridays, the Nightmares, the Halloweens, and all of that. Maybe a Chainsaw or a Chucky, maybe. Leprechaun, you'll just never see that. But, because I hated it when it came out. All of them. I was actually at, the book, whatever the place is called, Half Price Books. And I was looking on their little horror movie selection shelf, and they had one that I have not seen this film in so long. Some of you out there might not have even heard of it or might have been born when it came out. Like I said, 157,000 times. When this movie came out, I was 10 years old because it was 1992. Very obscure and definitely divided, but I think more on the negative side. Stephen King's Sleepwalkers. This is a very obscure movie. Probably people only remember it from when it came out. This actually is the original cover art that they actually had up at the theater when the film was released. It was directed by Mick Garris, and this is one of the screenplays that was actually just straight written by Stephen King. This movie was not an original story from one of his novels or anything. It was written strictly for film. Okay. So either way, I was 10 years old when this film came out in 1992. I wanted to see it real bad, begged my parents to go see it, and they actually took me to go see it. The three of us went to go see it, and it's highly hilarious for those of you who remember seeing this movie when it came out, or even have seen the movie recently. I kind of more aiming towards people who saw it when it came out so it could give some context. But believe it or not, it was a sold-out crowd for this movie because the Stephen King craze was like kind of big time. This was 1992. It had already come out. Pet Sematary had come out. I believe Tommyknockers had come out or was coming out around this time. It was a Stephen King craze on TV and in films. So this movie was a sold-out crowd. The whole house was packed for this movie, which is highly hilarious watching it now because I have not seen Sleepwalkers probably. I've only seen the film, I think, maybe right off, and maybe this might be my fourth time ever seeing the film throughout since I saw it. Because I saw it once at the theater, then I saw it again when it came to cable, and then I might have seen it one other time. So I think this is like only the fourth time I've ever seen the film. But when I saw it, the crowd was responding to the movie. I mean, as wacky and as loony as it is. And everybody seemed like when the movie was over that they were happy with it. I remember, of course, I was 10 years old, so, I can still remember I didn't think it was the greatest, but I thought it was, for what it was supposed to be, which is a good, gory horror movie, I thought it was good. One of my best friend at the time, I went home and told him about it. Matter of fact, we had a big disagreement about a lot of movies that came out around that time. I remember thinking Batman Returns was okay when it came out, but that was me just trying to convince myself it didn't suck. Which it doesn't suck, but I had a really negative feeling towards that movie. He hated it, and he hated this film too. I remember I was like, yeah, Sleepwalkers was pretty good, and he was like, man, that movie was Jake. That was a word we used to use for suck back then. The movie was Jake. It wasn't any good. So, either way, Sleepwalkers basically tells the story of these shape-shifting, I believe they're shapeshifters. They're shapeshifters, but they kind of are like a hybrid of like cats and human beings with like vampirism kind of traits, but they can do like telekinetic type of stuff, and they can do other supernatural things, make themselves disappear. They can make objects change from what they are, and it's really strange stuff. Stephen King definitely pulled out the crack to write this screenplay. But I give it props just for being as nuts it is. So either way, There's a father and son who are these sleepwalkers, these shapeshifters, who are involved in this incestuous kind of relationship. Oh God, the crowd reacted to that real good at the time in the theater. I'll tell you about that later. But and basically, the sleepwalkers' kind of life cycle is not very clear, at least to me. They give you a basic outline of it, but I still don't understand really the way they work. But basically, the mother needs to feed, so the son has to go steal the life force of a virginal female. And basically, the whole setup is Brian Krause, who was on Charmed back in the day, and the mother is played by Alice, I think her name is Alice Krinn? I don't know how you say her last name, but she was the Borg in the Star Trek movie. Star Trek, oh God, what the heck is with me today? Whatever the Star Trek movie was where they had the Queen Borg, which I cannot remember what the name of that one was off now. And it came out when I was in high school. But either way, it's that same actress. She's a fantastic actress. She's very scary in this movie. So basically, Brian Krause has got to seduce. I can't remember anybody's name today. Mitchin Amick. I can't remember her name, but she's really hot. And I remember I was 10. I just thought she was just the most adorable thing. She's brown hair, beautiful eyes. She's gorgeous. Steal her life force so she can feed her mom, so her mom doesn't die. That's the basic outline of the picture. Upon rewatching it again, coming back to Sleepwalker, since I haven't seen it in so long, I mean, let alone sat and watched it from beginning to end, I was actually very surprised at how much early 90s special effects cheese is going on here. I actually read some comments on IMDb before I went back and watched it, and I saw a lot of people who were around my age who saw it in theaters at the time, and they were all kind of saying, it was cheesy, I thought it was great at the time, I thought it was corny. For me, I wouldn't go so far as to say I thought the film was corny upon rewatching it. I didn't think it was corny. I just really thought that some of the, particularly the stuff with the morphing stuff from the sleepwalker vampirist face back to Brian's regular face, particularly the shot in the car. They used to advertise that a lot when the film first came on cable. And oh my God, that shot now just looks bad. It doesn't look good. I can remember a gag that I really responded to at the time when the film came out was Brian ripping his teacher's hand off in the car, and watching it now, I'm just like, wow. It really had a great impact in the theater with the crowd, and he goes, you're right, you should really keep your hands to yourself, and he hands the teacher his hand after he rips it off. But I remember in the theater, everybody was like, whoa! And watching it now, I was just kind of like, wow. Like, it had such tiny impact, but then again, we're talking that's 20 years ago. Since then, there's been Saw and Hostel and Hills Have Eyes remake and all that, so, and High Tension and all that stuff. So maybe that's what it is. But I didn't feel the impact. But then again, I am watching it on a 1989 Magnavox television, so maybe that's what takes away the impact too. But a lot of the effects are pretty cheesy in this thing. The movie and the production design is pretty good. Wikipedia, so we know it's true, says the budget was about $13 million, but it looks like they had a pretty good budget for this movie. I know it was produced by the guys who wrote some of Poltergeist 1 and who had strict writing for Poltergeist 2, The Other Side. So I think the writing is okay in the story. I mean, if there's any big issue I have with the movie is, of course, is the cheesy 90s special effects with some of the morphing stuff. And I take a little bit of issue of kind of not being completely clear about how the sleepwalkers, really particularly clear about what they are and how their life cycle works. Because there's little indications in the story that, like, they're the last sleepwalkers. His name is Charles, and his mom are the last sleepwalkers. So I guess that's why mom is so dependent on him getting this girl who is Mitchin Amick. I'm sorry, guys, if I messed up her name, but she'll just be Mitchin Amick right now. Wait. I'll look at the damn cover. Mitchin Amick. So I guess that's why they're so dependent on her, because other sleepwalkers can't get other life force for her. I don't know. It's not clear. It doesn't make any sense to me, but whatever. So, and another thing about the movie is that it's really slow. It's an hour and 25 minutes, but kind of the whole first act is really just Charles, the actor's name. The whole first act is really Charles just kind of prepping and grooming and kind of stalking Mitch and Amy so he could eventually steal her life force, get it back to his mom. It takes a long time. I think it's almost, I think I looked at the DVD player. It's about 45, 50 minutes into the movie before Brian finally, I'm just going to call him Brian. I'm not going to call him by his character name. Before he gets going with his first attack on Mitch and Amy. And, some of the scares they're okay. And like I said, I like the production design. I really like the cinematography. They really play with the colors. There's a lot of really creepy colors, oranges and reds and blues to kind of put you in this world. And the best scenes in this film are with the mother and the son. When those two are at the house, it's creepy, it's weird. I mean, they're sleeping together. And I tell you guys, when we saw this in the theater, I can still remember when he goes, because at first you're thinking just like, oh, they're mother and son. That was the way it was set up in the movie. And I'm sorry, guys, spoilers for those of you out there who might not have even seen the film. But, it has been like 20-something years since this movie's been out. But either way, like when they set it up, you're thinking like, oh, motherly son. And then he goes, I love you, mother. Let's dance. And like they're dancing, but they're like dancing. Like they about to get it on. And then they kiss. I still remember the theater was like, no! It was just gross. And then he goes upstairs. And then they have sex. They have sex twice in this movie. And there's like a glowing light as they sleep together. And then there's a second scene where they actually show him on top of her kissing. And it's just gross. And it's weird. And those scenes are the best scenes in the movie. Go figure. And I think it's because the actor Brian Krause, he has such a Boy Next Door, Beverly Hills 90210 type of look that he really has an underlying creepiness when he's acting with the mother character played by Alice Cringe. When he's acting with her, and she is like firing on all cylinders. Like this woman, I really believe that she might have like flipped. I think she might have killed Mitch and Amy, like for real, like off camera. I mean, she's totally in the character. She's the best part of the movie. Matter of fact, she sells this entire thing. If it wasn't for her, I don't know if the movie would be so. Because Mitch and Amy is good. She's cute. And she does get off me. And she does all that. She plays her part. Beautiful blue eyes with water in them and all that. She's great. Blood on her nose. Great. But that woman, Alice Cringe, she sells this entire movie. She makes the entire package complete. She's fabulous in this movie. Ferris Bueller's parents pop up. And it is literally Ferris Bueller's parents. The same actor and actress. Really good here. They're really good in here. They don't have that much screen time. But the guy who was Ferris Bueller's dad, there's a scene where him and Brian's mother have a confrontation on the porch, and I really like how subtly disgusted he is. It doesn't really mean much in the context of the film, but the look in his eye and the seething anger, I thought that was really good. Now, some of the early gore in the movie doesn't work, but I will say, after Brian's first attack on Mitch and Emick at the cemetery, that's a good scene. I love how Brian this whole time is very sweet. He's very sweet because he's trying to seduce her so he can get her life force, right? And then when his mother says, look, I'm hungry, I'm starving, forget about you liking her, because the whole thing is he's holding back because he actually is starting to like her for real, when she says, look, you got to go get that life force. And the cemetery scene, he turns it on, and then, he's trying to suck the life force out of her, which is a really cool special effect. They used to advertise it on all the advertisements when the film came out. But what I love is how, she's like, what are you doing to me? And then he goes, is this the kind of excitement you were talking about? And I love that switch, and he has this manic look in his eye. And for him to have the look that he has, that Beverly Hills 90210 look, and for him to switch it like that, I love that. I love that whole attack scene. It gets a little bit too Freddy Krueger one-linery, But again, this was during that time where horror was kind of in limbo. Freddy was a goofball the year before, so they were kind of trying to play on it. And I like that attack scene. I do remember when I saw the film, it was the majority of the audience was black when we saw the film. So when the cop guy gets killed by Brian, I remember everybody, a guy behind me was like, "Oh, why the brother got to die?" I mean, it was so funny, man. And that scene is good too, where he sticks him in the ear and slams his head like down on it. I mean, and that one still plays pretty good. But then pretty much Sleepwalkers kicks into high gear from the attack scene at the cemetery. But once Brian dies, spoiler, and then the mom goes back to the house to kidnap Mitch and Amy, from then on the movie's firing on all cylinders. I think the finale of this movie is just fantastic. I mean, it doesn't make a lick of sense. I mean, the mom takes a 6-shooter, shoots a car, and it explodes like the Expendables or Rambo. I remember even being 10 years old when I saw the movie. I was like, what the heck? What? Thinking like, what? You know, doesn't make any sense, but whatever. And then she bites off Ron Hellboy Perlman's fingers and spits it out. She takes his elbow, snaps it. Ooh, the bone comes out. Smacks him in his face with his own elbow. It is great. It is great. All the stuff with her is great. Where the mom is killing people, she throws Ferris Bueller's mom out the window, snaps her arm, Steven Seagal style, throws her out the window. I mean, stabs the cop with the ear cord, which I thought that was stupid at the time when I saw it. But hey, it's gleefully gory and over the top. The whole finale is great. But it's just some of the early 90s cheese, you know, kind of not really understanding the Sleepwalkers too much. That's kind of my biggest problems with the movie. That being said, do I think it's as bad as everybody makes it out to be? I do not think it's as awful as people make it out to be. Because I read a couple of retro interviews from when the movie came out. I don't think it's horrible. I just think that if it would have been a little bit more clear what the Sleepwalkers are or what they do and how many, where they came from, and if the first act wouldn't have been so slow, I think it would have been a little bit better. The early 90s cheese, special effects, whatever, I mean, I can deal with that. But that kind of does hurt the film now, seeing the fact that you got those 2 strikes against it. So, for those who like horror films and like gleeful gore and just something that just gets bat nuts crazy, a very, very, very mild recommendation. Upon rewatching it, I didn't hate it. I think the third act, and the actress who plays Brian's mom saves the picture. Oh, and also I want to make mention about the music. The musical score is really good, and the production values in this thing is good. The musical score, you know, the Fugees use that in the song. Now, I don't know if that piece of music is originally written for this film and the Fugees used it later. I know the Fugees used it like way later in the 90s, like 96 or 97 or 98. So I don't know. I think this was originally written for this movie. But the score for the movie is really good. So, you know, I'd say the score, some of the cinematography, a lot of the gore in the third act, the gore in the second and third act of the movie is really good. And the actress who plays the mom, Alice Krinn, she sells this thing. Because there's a scene where the lion shape-shifting vampire is like going, Mom, I'm dying. And it looks absolutely silly and ridiculous. And when they turn into full-on cat mode Sleepwalkers, those costumes just look bad, man. They don't look good. They look bad. They look like a movie I saw on Cinemax called The Terror Within Part 2, starring Andrew Stevens of the Seduction fame. They look bad. It just looks bad. So it's like she's sitting there like petting this really bad cat-looking costume, and she's selling it. She's like crying like she's doing Shakespeare. I mean, she's like, oh my boy, no, my boy won't die. You get up and you dance. Because at this part, the mom can't get her life force, so she's like lost it. You know what I mean? So she's just killing everybody. And she sells that scene. I mean, this, as silly and as goofy as this movie is, she sells it. So, mild recommendations with high reservations about the complete absurdity and just how much this thing just doesn't make sense. Little bit of nostalgia is kind of giving me a little bit more of a forgiving rating, kind of. I also want to make a note on some cameos. Luke Walker, you know what I mean. Mark, Luke Skywalker, the Trickster, Hamill, the Joker pops up. Toby Hooper pops up. Clive Barker, Stephen King, and John Landis of the Twilight Zone movie fame all make cameos here. Good cameos. Yeah, mild recommendation to Sleepwalkers. I am fully warning you all that this is not good. I'm only saying you should watch the movie strictly for the relationship between the mother and the son, because the mom is really good. And basically the second act and the third act of the movie, and some of the music. So, thumbs up the video, subscribe to the channel, leave comments down below, share the video, and let's talk about Sleepwalkers and anybody who actually saw it theatrically at the time like I did. Oh, one more note I want to throw in. I do remember when the movie was over at the time and the crowd was walking out or whatever and everybody just throwing their popcorn in the trash can and all that. I'll never forget, me and my parents were getting into the car, and I'll never forget, this brother was talking to one of his buddies in the parking lot. He had a cigarette in his mouth, and he was like, "Hey, my man, that was some crazy shit, wasn't it?" Swear to God, that's what happened at the time. I just had to throw that story in. But, and another thing is, I think when he rips the teacher's hands off and he goes, I'm sorry. And I remember everybody in the audience was like, oh, now you say sorry. That's how audiences react to this stuff. So, that's my review of Sleepwalkers. Stephen King's Sleepwalkers. Whatever. I know it's mostly hated. I think nostalgia is giving me. I'm being a little bit more forgiving on it, but I know it has a lot of issues. So I'll be back with my other horror movie review. I'm not going to tell you guys what it is, and